You're not going to believe this, or maybe you will. He actually started as a busboy. And then because he wasn't that good, he kept getting promoted. He jokes about that. I know he was that good. He then became creative designer, marketing director, and in 2016, chief marketing officer. Please join me in welcoming Nabil Alagir.
Thank you. Hey guys, how you doing? Alrighty, cool. Thank you so much for having me. Today we'll talk a little bit about how to compete against, first of all, whoever's idea it was to put me after Burger King, because we have like 50 restaurants. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that paradox. So how do we, I'll talk about Burger King a lot. Are they still here? Is Burger King still here? All right, they're not here, so we can talk about them freely. I'll talk about Burger King a lot today. And they're a big, giant company, right? So, and we're a tiny company. We have 50 restaurants in 5 countries. So we have to growth hack. We have to do things differently. We have to do things on a budget, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that and the positions we're hiring and looking into, and how we're looking into the startup world to go ahead and innovate. All right, so a little bit about Bear Burger. We opened in 2009. I did start as the first busboy, and I was very terrible, and that's why they kept on promoting me upwards. That was the only way to get rid of me. Our check average is $43. We're in 5 countries, and we have 50 locations currently. A little bit about myself. A year before I joined as a busboy, I just came to the country. I learned English watching Scorsese movies, and yeah. And so if I'm pointing a lot, threatening people, it's just part of my upbringing. All right, so we're going to talk about these 6 roles, right? We're going to talk about a pipeline specialist, growth hacker, marketing data analyst, UI UX designer, inbound marketer, and the chief experience officer. So these are the roles I think are emerging in, not just in restaurant, but everywhere across the board. So let's look at them. First, the growth hacker. These are the data from Bear Burger third-party data for Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats. We will talk about Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats a lot because I hate them. You guys know the margins they're taking, right? So we have third-party sites. This is the sales on third-party sites in 2016-17, $20 million. On our website, we're doing 3.3 million, and on our app, we're doing 474,000, right? So why do we hate third-party? This room needs no introduction. They take anywhere from 20 to 30%, right? Those are the fees. We all are trying to figure out how to get away from that, right? So a growth hacker's job is to go ahead and put a budget together, right? So I'll give you some of the solution a growth hacker will come up with. So they'll create a digital summary for what we're spending in 2019, right? It's not a lot. It's $610,000. That's Burger King's coffee budget for the year. And I'm fine with that, right? So we'll break it down exactly what we're spending and where are we spending it, right? And this is something that we've taken from startups, right? From apps. I am also founder of 2 to 3 failed startups. So everything I've learned from the startup world. And this is something you create when you have a lean marketing budget. And what do you do after that? So we looked at third-party sites and we said, you know what? We can do something better. We can. This is distracting me. I can't look at you guys. I've been staring at that bottle. So let's make ourselves better than third-party sites, right? Let's make sure Bear Burger is available to order via text, Messenger, Slack, Google, Alexa, Smart TV, right? So a little bit more available, right? Domino's obviously excels in this better than anyone else. What else would a growth hacker do? You want to make sure you can order from our Facebook app, right? Have a conversation. There's AI involved. And you can even tell the Facebook Messenger, hey, I'm vegan. And then the rest of the conversation will be our menu, but it'll be vegan offering, right? You can even say, I'm looking for food items that are less than 500 calories. The menu readjusts, and now the conversation's around our leaner stuff on our menu. Something else a growth hacker would do, they'll do ad roll targeting. We've taken this from fashion. Fashion does this better than anyone else. Have you shopped for something, and then you just looked at something, you're browsing, and you see those pair of sneakers everywhere, and you're just sick and tired of seeing it, and you just buy it? No, just me? No? All right, so we've taken that from fashion, and now we're doing ad roll targeting across Spotify, across Facebook, across Instagram. If someone has put something in our cart, we'll make sure that cart shows up and that item shows up and is following you around your digital landscape. All right, something else a growth hacker would do. A growth hacker would look at all the discounts we're doing, right? So let's look at some of the discounts we've done in the last 6 months. Orders with promo, 12,000. Total number of discounts, we've given away $50,000 in discount. That's only 1.9%. So I have franchisees that I have to explain and tell them, hey, we're giving away free burgers or free sides. It's only 1.9%. No reason to be upset. Average discount is $4. Customers that have used it in the last 6 months on our app, 9,000. Revenue from that, a little bit over 350,000, right? So next year, when I'm asking for the budget to increase, I have data, actual data from the last 6 months to show on why I need more money, right? In fact, I'm doing growth hacking right now. I have an app, right? I have a download code. You guys can try it, QSR Talk, and everyone in this room gets a free burger, right? So these are some of the things our growth hacking team are constantly doing to make sure that we're out there. So we looked at our 2017 numbers, we compared it to 2018. The needle is moving, right? It's working. Third-party site used to be at 84%, they've dropped down to 64%. Can I get a hallelujah? Website has moved from 14% to 24%. App has quadrupled from 2 to 8%, right? And we'll talk about 2019 as well. All right, role number 2, pipeline specialist. This one's a boring role, so whoever you hate on your team, you give it to them. But this guy's the operator, right? This is a guy on a team who does not miss the details. So they will look at a customer journey. This is the Bear Burger customer journey. Red means we're spending money. Yellow means it's experience or earned media, right? So this is a customer journey for Bear Burger from the moment we've reached out to them to their first purchase, to if they're a repeat customer, loyal customer, or are they lapsing or indecisive customer, right? So a pipeline specialist, their job is to look at this customer journey and make sure we can go ahead and increase check average, increase check, customer frequency, right? So let's look at some things a pipeline specialist would do. They would say, hey, listen, you guys, Sweet Green and Diggin are crushing it. Bear Burger is not, because it's a full sit-down concept, right? So people don't feel like they can come in really quickly and grab a meal to go, right? So let's go ahead and launch our app and make sure that people can see these smart lockers where we can order the food and we'll put it in the lockers so people can grab and go, right? So we are a sit-down restaurant that takes average 5 minutes to cook their burger and prep it, maybe 7 minutes to prep it and package it. If we time it properly, and if a customer is walking towards the restaurant, we can now fire that and make sure we're timing our product perfectly, right? So we can never be as fast as Chipotle, Diggin, or Sweet Green, but we can make sure the customer experience is a little bit better, so we could get a little bit more of a lunch crowd. So this is something a pipeline specialist would come propose to us, and we're testing this out in a couple of our locations. A pipeline specialist would say, hey, let's go ahead and increase the number of impulse purchases people can buy near the cash register or online, right? Things that people can buy and hold on to for a little bit longer, or grab and go, right? So maybe there's a protein bar we can go ahead and increase, right? Maybe there's some chips instead of fries because fries don't travel well. If an average restaurant does 3 items a day, we're looking at $250,000 a year, right? So even if we try it and it fails, you're looking at $256,000 to your bottom line. I can't see the numbers, so I'm guessing, guys. So you tell me if I'm making stuff up. I can barely see anything from here. All right, a clothing partnership. Partner up with someone local. Go ahead and do a revenue sharing and go ahead and dab into a little bit into fashion and do some inbound marketing with them, right? So more ways to go ahead and drive our traffic and conversations from a different area where we're maybe not the industry leaders. Role number 3, marketing data analyst. Am I going too fast, too slow? Perfect. Someone said perfect. He said perfect. All right. Number 3 is marketing data analyst. This is one of my favorites. We work with a company called Cardalytics. Anyone's heard of them? Yeah, a lot of them. Okay. So for anyone who's not, what Cardalytics does is they will look at all your credit cards and they will send you offers via your bank. So 10% cash back if you go to Bear Burger, right? So now if you activate it and you come to Bear Burger, I can track not just data on you, but I can also you also get cash back, and I'm losing average 8% on that check, right? So that's the deal. We lose 8%. I'm driving you via your bank, and I can also track credit cards that have never been swiped before, right? So it adds a lot of benefits to restaurants. One of the things I like is I can now see how often the customer comes back or does not come back, right? So we're looking at average 70% of the time customers are coming to Bear Burger and never coming back again. It's not that alarming, right? We know in New York that's what happens. There's so much options. There's a lot of tourist traffic. That's what happens in New York. But let's go ahead and look at how we're doing compared to in-app and third-party. And what would a marketing data analyst do when they looked at this data? They want to go ahead and increase the frequency and see if we can win some of those customers back. So some of the things we do. And guys, I'm sharing stuff that you have to be really creative when you don't have a lot of money, right? So we're looking at our slow hours on Mondays and Tuesdays and partnering up with apps like Lulu app, Kelspace, BackBNB, and OpenTable. So what are we doing? Apps like Lulu app and Kelspace are pretty fascinating. Kelspace is like WeWork. They'll convert your restaurant into a WeWork. So people are not just going to Starbucks. People are coming to your restaurant on Mondays and Tuesdays. And your manager can decide when people can come into your restaurant, right? And let's say it's $4 an hour to the guest. You get 80% of that, and the app gets 20%. In addition, now that you have people coming into your restaurant and you have that digital presence, on top of that, people are usually buying something. We've noticed that 23% of the time, the customers who are coming in from Kelspace are purchasing something. So that's something you can do during slow hours. Lulu app, this one's funny. Anyone's heard of Lulu app? No? So, Starbucks has a policy now, anyone can use their restroom. So the quality has dropped, right? They are now terrible. So with Lulu app, you can now, just like you get an Uber, you can purchase restrooms. Like you can purchase a trip to a restroom for $3-4, right? Instead of going to a Starbucks. So wherever you are, you turn on the app, and restaurants you like or spaces you like, you can go and use your restroom. And again, there's a profit sharing with the restaurant. If a guest walked into our restaurant and said, hey, I'm not buying anything, can I use your restroom? We would say yes anyways, right? Would never turn anyone away. Unless, no, I don't think we would turn anyone away. So why not drive more traffic and have more digital presence? Something else this analyst would do is they would go ahead and work with companies like ZenReach. Anyone's heard of ZenReach? No? Come on, you guys all got to use ZenReach. So ZenReach is whenever you go into an airport or Starbucks and the Wi-Fi thing pops up, when you sign up, ZenReach collects everything they can on you, right? Especially if you sign up on Facebook. I collect over 60 different data points on you if you join Bear Burger Wi-Fi, right? You need Wi-Fi, we need data. This is perfect because now when you have signed in, I can see how long your IP has sat down in our restaurant, so I can classify you as a pickup order, delivery order, or a dine-in order. In addition, what I can do is I can now keep on targeting you, right? Every 4 weeks, give you $5. You haven't come for 8 weeks, I'm knocking down your door. I'm showing up because now I have that data. So we can set up aggressive campaigns to go ahead and win our customers back. Flash promos, what we've done after we've read that data is, and our website or online ordering is, if you have ordered from Bear Burger at 12 p.m. on a Monday, next week on Monday at 11 a.m., I'm sending you an email blast or showing up on your social feed and giving you a promo to make you purchase again. The average customer that comes to Bear Burger who's a loyalist comes in every 28 days because of our price point. So if I can get you to come in at least twice a month, it's a win for me. All right, number 4, UI UX designer. This was formerly most concepts had graphic designers, right? And our creative director is right there if you guys want to talk to him later. But why do we have a UI UX designer on top of let's just say a traditional graphic designer? Because our competition, we're on the intersection of how traceable we are and how many choices we offer, right? So that's what we pride ourselves in. Any of these concepts here? So I can talk shit about it. Anyone here? No? Freely, no problem. All right, so Bear Burger's on top, right? Choice and traceable. The people I really admire and compete against is Dig In and Sweet Green, right? Those are the people I'm trying to get because the customer profile they have similar education I'm looking for. They care about what they're putting into their body. So when I'm competing against those guys, what do they have? They have a brand that is crystal clear, they have a mission that is sound, and they make sure that they're adding more and more value to their customer journey. So what do I mean by that? So a UI UX designer, when competing against Dig In and Sweet Green, would say, we need to make some upgrades to our system. Upgrade number 1, let's make sure we know who is eating at a restaurant. Who are the carnivores, the vegans, who are the gluten intolerant. Let's go and sell the right thing to people. A vegan does not want to see a 5-ounce beef patty, right? So let's fix that. So you come to our website, there's 2 versions. There's a vegan version and there's a non-vegan version, right? Because our second biggest diet is the vegan groups, right? So you can go in, when we do a targeted marketing on our email blast, if you're vegan and you've received it and you clicked on it, you're seeing a website that the rest of the company is not seeing, that all of you guys are not seeing when you go to bearburger.com. Add ton more value, right? You can go ahead and click on any item on our website, and it will give you a detailed report on every single item and where it's coming from, right? You can even click on one single ingredient and find an essay on it. Have I read all of it myself? Absolutely not, right? But I know people care about it, and I want to make sure we're adding more value. Our online ordering, you can go based on your diet. It'll only show you a diet specific or a calorie specific. So as soon as you hover on any item, you can see more information about the farms it's coming from. Number 5, inbound marketing. This one's my personal favorite. So these are all the tools we use at Bear Burger, right? From how to go ahead and execute, capture, measure, and customer support, right? So these are all the tools we're using. But the reason we were successful in 2009 was because we were a really good local burger joint. And so how does the inbound marketer make sure that we're not just becoming bigger and just doing everything digital? How are we still staying close to our roots from back in 2009? Every week you'll see an article that is released from Bear Burger about something that is not about Bear Burger, right? About how we can help the environment, how we can go ahead and have a cleaner diet, why vegan food is better for you, and just different diets themselves. A lot about nutrition and the planet. And nowhere in those articles will we mention Bear Burger, right? Or, oh, this is why we do it and this is why you should come here. That's not the point. The point is just to add value, right? Inbound marketing is all about add value, and maybe when the customer is ready and if you've added enough value, they'll come by, right? 90% of what we do is ask people to buy our stuff. You know, it's okay to take a break and say, hey, can I do something for you guys? I know that this is the profile, customer profile. How can I go ahead and make their life a little bit better? Something else we do is we also convert those into videos, and we launch monthly videos for kids, ages 4 to 12. So now kids can look at the video and they can look at complex nutrition videos and break it down. We have a video about GMO that we've broken down that a 5-year-old hopefully can understand, right? Something else we're launching Q4 is we're getting a couple of nutritionists on the team. Even if, so now you guys can go to our website and say, hey, I would like to talk to a nutritionist if I can eat this or that, right? Because we get at least 20 emails a day about some of our food items, like about allergy-related items. So we'll have nutritionists on call that you can call and talk to them about, hey, if you can come to Bear Burger, right? Who does this? Apple Care does this, right? If you go to who here has an Apple computer? Right? And who here has gone into one of their shops? I bet 80% of you have taken something in and they said we have to send it back somewhere else to fix it. Is that correct? Right? So the reason for that is what they're trying to do is fix the basic issues so they can have a win. More than anything else, it's a marketing technique. I used to work for them. It's a marketing technique to let you know that they really care about fixing your product. But they're fixing it just like Microsoft is. They're sending it back, right? And if it's a basic issue and they can solve it, which is 10 to 20% of the items, they'll solve it right there. Most of it they're sending back. So similarly, we want to make sure not only are we perceived as a company that cares about your nutrition, we're putting our money where our mouth is, right? So even if we hire 3 of them and we do, let's say we're booking around 10 appointments a week, we're looking at $85,000 a year, which is not that bad. Something else we're doing, to continue to be the community burger joint, we're doing tons of local activations. We have 50 restaurants. Each restaurant has to do one marketing activation a month. So we're doing, hopefully hundreds of them a year, right? So if we keep on continuing to do and give back to the community, it comes back, even when you mess up. And we mess up a lot, right? Anyone who here sells food, we mess up, things go wrong. Are they going to forgive us and come back, right? And when you continue to go ahead and give to the community, best believe there's a friend in there that says, you got to try it again. If they changed their menu, they got better, right? Usually people are saying, yeah, I hate them too, right? And because of one person in a group, you don't go to a restaurant, right? If all of us went to a restaurant right now, the 7 of us, if someone someone did not like a restaurant, none of us would go there, right? So similarly, you need advocates and ambassadors for your brand. All right, number 6 is Chief Experience Officer. This is my role. How vain to add myself at the end. But we are marketers. All right, a couple of things I've done is do a lot of activations in the space to go ahead and continue to see if we can push the boundaries as a small concept, right? So this is a Snapchat AR campaign we launched last year that was probably our most successful. If someone has Snapchat, you can scan that. Basically, if you scan that code, what happens is the video is not working. All right, what happens is if you scan that code, you will see a virtual burger, and it's not an animated version. It's one of our actual burgers, and you can place it on the table. So I'm a big movie fan, as you guys can imagine. I watched Willy Wonka, and I saw the Golden Ticket campaign, and I said, hey, we should try the same thing, right? Give back to the community, give some free burgers away, and try this technology out. So we gave away 100 burgers per concept, per restaurant. Gave it to our VIP fans, put them in the to-go bags, and it just became a viral campaign that we did last year before Burger King. All right, they did do it the immediate summer. But listen, the reason we're able to sometimes beat the bigger guys is because we're small. That's the only advantage we have, right? When we make a decision, it's me and one other guy, right? So, or a girl, right? I have to check with one or two people. So when we can go ahead and work with a lot of startups to go ahead and activate concepts, might as well, versus when a startup calls some of the people here, it's very hard to get to you, right? You want those phone calls, but there's a lot of barriers in between. My team has to go to a startup event every week. Right? It has to go to a talk or a startup event every week and look for what's next out there. This is something else we're doing at one of our restaurants. This is a projection on the table. This is AR tech. You can order and it'll go print straight to the kitchen, right? We all know we're trying to cut labor. So this is one of the things we're trying to do to go ahead and cut some labor. We don't know if this is tacky, but hey, we're testing, we're trying it out. That was inspired from Minority Report. All right, so remember how I mentioned online ordering numbers, right? So this is 2017, this is 2018. This is my projection for 2019. And as you can see, we're finally taking 50% of our online ordering back, all right? And again, these are projections for 2019. So how are we doing that? My job is to go ahead and not just find the right partners. Sometimes if I can't find it, it's start the right companies, right? So we have Lunchbox here. We have the CEO of Lunchbox here. So I kept on going out there and looking for the right partner, like Level Up, Brandable, Olo, and I couldn't find someone who could take care of all of my stuff and charge me 1 to 2% of what my fees are. Not 15%, not 30%, right? So when I couldn't find it, I went up to Andrew and I said, Andrew, because Andrew and I have had 3 failed startups together, so we obviously hate each other by this point. I'm like, Andrew, can you build everything I need? I'll scope it out. Our design team will push it out for you. Can you build it out? And Andrew's like, yeah, I can build this out in 2 weeks. So why would I build this? This is so simple. Why don't you why is this not in existence? So a restaurateur and a technologist got together and we started a company called Lunchbox, and we started 2 months ago, but it has taken over our kiosk, web, and app, right? And I'm paying 1 to 2% of the check average instead of 30%, right? And I'm working with only one company to do my UX, to do the ordering. So sometimes our job is not to just look for the right partner. Our job is to start the companies if we can't find it, right? The reason Andrew started, because Andrew was in Johnson & Johnson, he wanted out of there, right? And the reason we needed him to start this is because we couldn't find the right partner. And since in the 2 months, he signed up 16 Handle and Stickies. And yes, sometimes we have to start these companies and help them and bring them into our space. We cannot expect Level Up and Brandable and Olo to know our pain points. We know our pain points, so let's build it ourselves. And the last thing Chief Experience Officer would do, and the reason we built it out is because I needed an omni-channel ecosystem so I can launch all the campaigns I wanted. These are the 66 different campaigns we've been working on to go ahead and convert online ordering from third-party sites like Grubhub and Seamless to ours. And the joke is, a third-party site, one of the major players, is actually looking into their company to invest. So we've been bashing them publicly as much as we can, but they know that we're upset, right? And they don't know how to cut the margins. So we have to figure out how to do it ourselves. All right, the last thing a Chief Experience Officer would do. So in 2009, we were an organic burger chain, and that was cool back then. It's not cool at all anymore, right? So how can we still be relevant and still go ahead and make sure we're listening to our customers? This is our BCG growth matrix. We looked at what is high on the market share and market growth, and we saw the vegan community was what we needed to target. The reason for that is we were the first launchers of the Impossible Burger, and we're the only ones who does Impossible and Beyond Burger. And what will happen was 80% of everyone who's trying the Beyond and the Impossible Burger were meat eaters, right? And if you guys don't know what the Beyond and Impossible Burgers are, it's a plant-based burger. It looks like beef, bleeds like beef, right? We've been sourcing from farmers that are organic, sustainable, and local. We said, hey, let's find partners like Impossible so we can make sure that we're now sourcing from the future, right? It is by far the most sustainable product on our menu. And so we looked at it. We saw it was 95% less land. It's less land. I can't look at the numbers, guys. It makes no sense. It's better. It's better than beef. It's better than beef, believe me. All right. Yeah. So we said, you know what? Let's release that. And as of yesterday, we've officially converted to 50% vegan. All our restaurants are 50% vegan. One side is a regular menu, and if you flip it, it has a duality. It is perfectly vegan. On the other side, we have products like Vegan and Impossible, but we have other partners that are on the forefront of protein that has all the caloric values just as beef or tuna does, but it's completely plant-based, right? That being said, we are now the second biggest vegan chain in the world, right? Right after Veggie Grill. So that's how we're innovating this year, and that's how we're moving forward. And that is, again, some of the job of a chief experience officer to keep on being relevant and keep on moving the needle and making uncomfortable decisions. This might backfire. I might not be here next year, even in the audience if this backfires, but that's the job, right? And with that being said, thank you. Yep.
Take any questions? Dozen questions. I've got
questions.
one. Since you've been there since the beginning, obviously, what are some of the things that caused the growth? Because you've been growing dramatically since the beginning. And did you get an agency somewhere along the way? Are you doing it all yourself? What's making it work?
Okay, we're completely in-house. Our team is, when I keep on describing these roles, there's like 6 people, right? Our marketing team is 6 people. Zach, is that correct? We're 6 people. We have no outside agencies we work with. Our annual budget is $600,000. We can't afford anything, right? We know the margin in the restaurant space. We've also not taken any outside money yet, so we've completely bootstrapped. So we're hoping that will change soon. But we're prepared when the money does come in to go ahead and grow properly, right? So we want to make sure we don't lose the narrative. So completely in-house.
How's your Impossible Burger supply?
It's right now it's short. Did you know that? Is that what you're asking? All right. It is in short supply. Thank you. Is that Burger King that launched it? Is it Burger King? Thanks, Burger King. But we have 5 other products that are similar, if not better. Again, plant-based protein. So I know Impossible and Beyond are all the craze. We were doing that 3 years ago when no one else was, right? We're trying to do something much better and cleaner now. So we've moved, that's not our narrative anymore. Our narrative is now, hey, we have an entire menu of items similar to that. Yeah. So it is short, but we have the Beyond 2.0. And we're the only, I think one of the 2 restaurant groups that has the Beyond 2.0, and we're super excited about that. Yeah.
Earlier this morning, we talked about some stats where one of the big drivers of QSR nationally are coupons and loyalty deals. The download the app for free thing, of the people who downloaded the app for free, do they typically stick with you, or is it really they just want the deal?
You know how I said 70% of the people who come to Bear Burger never come back again? 82% of the customers that download the app never come back again. Right? And those are level up numbers. Those are not the new app numbers, so I don't have that. But typically, the real estate on your phone has become so valuable, right? It has become very expensive. One of the things we've done to go ahead and compete with that is we're available in every format. So you can order in every different way you want to, right? And one of the things we've done is the points are transferable, whether it's dine-in, delivery, online, web, whatever you do, right? So those are some of the things we've done to compete against that, but we were not able to before because we worked with 3-4 different companies, just like everyone is. The best restaurant website, in my eyes, the Sweet Green website, is made by 7 different teams. I can't afford 7 different teams and Gin Lane, the agency that helped make it for $1 million. So we said, you know what, we'll give you $10,000, do it all. So, and in exchange, what hopefully Andrew got out of it is he has his own company now that he's reselling, and now he hopefully has some of the restaurant background he needed to get started.
Right. Any other questions? Nabil, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, if our next panel can make their way to the stage, that would be great. That's our burger morning. Good stuff, both ranges. As consumers find so many routes to their eatery of choice, the data inputs explode. But QSRs now have to work with, in and around the dataverse of walled gardens. Who owns the data? How is it shared? Which signals do and don't matter for QSR? And how are the old and new brands reorganizing and integrating so data channels to drive coherent marketing, loyalty, and advertising strategy? Here to lead this discussion is Tina Allen, EVP Director, Data Solutions of BBD&O. Please join me in welcoming Tina and her panel.
Thank you. All right, get excited, because this panel, as I would say in my Boston accent, is wicked smart data people. And we're going to go deep to sort of, you've heard a lot today about big data, and I hope we can give you some data stories and demystify some of that. So with that, I'll kick it off and say, who do we think in QSR is disrupting right now in regard to data?
I'll start. Well, I think Starbucks is definitely, I wouldn't say disruptive, but I think they have the lead in terms of, collecting data from the app, store data. Their payment system is, second to none, specifically, as it relates to how people are, paying for things in store, tying that back into the customer experience. I mean, I definitely think that they're, for a large QSR brand, disruptive. Domino's, I think the app is cool. I think the concept is cool. I worked at Domino's back at Syracuse University in the early 90s, God. Delivering pizza.
I was going to say delivery boy.
Oh, yeah, it was a great job. Maybe the best job I ever had.
I delivered for Little Caesars.
There you go, when they delivered. Their app is great, and I think somewhat disruptive in terms of where things are going, the trackability of things, the closed loop process from order to actual delivery, because they do delivery. And I think the upstarts, the Kavas of the world, the Chops of the world, those guys, I'd keep an eye on them, because the way that they're using data to create in-store experiences and creating ways to, buy their products and fulfill them, I think that's what we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I would say to that like, not to be, Debbie Downer, but I would say nobody. I mean, Starbucks is probably the closest person to getting it right, to your point. But they also spent millions of dollars marketing this and advertising this, and like we were talking about in like the panel prep. For me, I think for a lot of the smaller guys that don't have that kind of money, I can't afford an Accenture, I can't afford a multi-million-dollar media budget, there's a lot of opportunity to leverage mobile devices, data, and technology and enhance the customer experience. So if you're a regional brand, instead of trying to do off-the-shelf geo-targeting or search retargeting from like a Criteo, go build your own custom targeting pool. Go enhance your own CRM program, inclusive of mobile alerts on the device. And, and we saw a presentation for those of the people that were here yesterday about the differences in 4G and 5G and what that means. To me, that means there's an opportunity to do this without necessarily having to get a customer to have an app on their phone. Because Starbucks, I think the statistic I read is about 1 in 4 people that walk in the door have an app on their phone. Your average QSR brand is, it's like, what, 1 in 25, 1 in 50 people that walk in the door having the app on the phone? But every single person that walks in your door has an email on their phone. So if you can tag the device through creating like wireless charging stations and free Wi-Fi and get people to opt in, you can get a tag on that device and that user's email and create a dialogue with that customer as part of a CRM program that doesn't necessarily mean to get them to download an app that they might forget's on their phone. And so I agree. Starbucks is probably the closest there. The Domino's thing, I think it's a cute story, but I think it's an ad campaign. It's not that damn good, right? So I would say nobody's doing it right, but yeah, there's a massive opportunity still there for the taking.
I always order a pizza in the park.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, on the subway. That's the absolute location.
Well, especially now that cannabis is legal, like I'm always wanting pizza in the park.
All right, so let's go to like a data story. So we heard a lot about data inputs. We heard about data science, marketing science. How does data really drive, business outcomes? Can you give me like an example?
Yeah. We look at data from a psychological all the way to performance perspective. And so for us, not just looking at what worked in the past, how do we repeat that? What's the new beta opportunity from like our media partner or whoever? But really looking at consumer and their data as a whole. What are they doing in the store? What are their motivations? How have they also interacted with our media? And tying all of those together to understand what they need from us really helps us change the businesses of the QSRs we're working with. But I think the way that we're trying to look at advertising for QSRs is more around how can we actually offer something to our consumer and change the business, whether that's like including Coke freestyle machines or if that's just a new ad placement on Facebook, so that we're understanding what they're telling us they need and then making changes off of that can then make them repeat customers, loyalists, whatever.
Yeah, I think the real opportunity is taking things that over the years we've all done in digital media with tracking and tagging and dynamic personalization, but taking it outside of the traditional marketing vehicle. And because if you think about what Uber's doing, that it's not a media company. I was on a panel yesterday, we talked about Amazon, divorce Amazon as an advertising vehicle and a walled garden, of just how they're changing consumer expectations of a brand. And then you talk about how people are trying to innovate, and we don't know if it'll work or not. But I remember reading a couple weeks ago an article on McDonald's and how they're trying to pilot a program now where they're going to get rid of the cashiers. So you always think about how AI and artificial intelligence and automation is going to replace people, but which people is it replacing? It's not replacing the guy in the kitchen cooking the food, even if it's a fast food chain. What they're going to do is replace the cashier where the mistakes happen in the ordering. And instead, I just go into McDonald's, I sit at a table, and either I use some sort of a tablet on the table and do my order, or for free Wi-Fi and wireless charging, I use my own phone. And instead of doing the app, I'm using a light mobile application via the browser. Right, and Steve Jobs talked about this years ago that, while 80+% of inventory right now with mobile is in-app, there's an increasing trend to just mobile web and mobile activity. And if I can then order at the table to the order I want, table service now is being introduced into a McDonald's environment, because instead of paying bodies to just ring in an order and punch a screen, I can punch a screen myself, and I can sit at the table with my wife and my kids, and somebody will just bring the food to the table for me. And that creates a data opportunity for McDonald's to build a custom retargeting program off of. It allows them to build their own bespoke targeting, and with GDPR and changing privacy regulations, they're now proactively compliant. And operationally, it's more efficient because they don't need 5 cashiers. They just need one 25-year-old to run food on trays to tables. So it's more cost effective too.
I agree, but not everyone's McDonald's, right? I mean, not everyone has this super huge budget. So how do smaller brands or companies test and learn? Like, how do you get through this huge data overwhelming, challenge without a lot of money?
Yeah, I actually think McDonald's is sort of leading the pack there, but I think it's a fairly simple execution. I mean, I couldn't agree more with Rob, which I hate saying on panels because they make them boring, but...
Kumbaya, we're all going to hug in a second.
Yeah, exactly. But Rob's point is so salient. I mean, we're talking about labor savings when it's actually a data play. And so the fact that, somebody can create, even using, a third-party app like Level Up, to create that experience in store where you can minimize the interaction that you have with a human being, which sounds really impersonal, but actually ironically creates personalized experiences for you as the customer. If I can take that data point and I can address it from that customer experience in store, from that data point that I'm putting into an app, into a browser, into a kiosk, and I can bring that up to the marketing, the point of having this disconnection between the marketing channel and the CX channel in restaurant, those things are converging, and they need to converge. I think what McDonald's is doing is an example, a very simple example of doing that, but I don't think you need to have a McDonald's-sized budget or footprint to be able to do it. I think there's plenty. I think a lot of the smaller brands are actually using some of these third-party apps to start to do that. One thing I will caveat, though, if you're using a third-party app like Revel or Level Up, just make sure if you're QSR, you are getting that data back. All the data that you can. Do not create a disintermediation between that data and the data that you guys have as the brand. Make sure that you have access to that.
Yeah.
So explain that a little more, because I think connecting the data dots is like, sometimes we add on, but we're not cohesive in our connection and our match back, so.
Yeah, I know from the analyst side, I'm sure that's really frustrating. From the data side and technology side, that could be frustrating as well. But it's not that hard to do. I mean, you have silos of data as any marketer. Rob and I have been doing this for a long time, and we've been dealing with this for a long time. But there is, it's gotten simpler to connect those pieces. So it's not a matter of, oh my God, this is a huge undertaking. I have to have multiple technology teams across the globe doing this. It's as simple as figuring out the right data that you want to aggregate together. It could be your POS data, it could be your app data, it could be your site data, it could be your CRM data. Combining those things together are not really hard to do. This is not a huge project, but you need to do it. And that's going back to Rob's point. Again, I'm agreeing with you vehemently. You need to do it. That's where you should be starting. Some of these proof of concept crazy ideas out there in terms of what app I need to build for X millions of dollars to make it, a really cool marketing program, great. But start with your first party data, aggregate it together, and make sure you don't have gaps, and use that as your starting point.
Yeah, what I would say to build on that is, don't overthink things sometimes. I think that's the biggest mistake that often happens. Like, you don't have to go spend 6 digits on a fancy Visual IQ or some other company to do this big fancy attribution platform. You have data in different sources, and just be smart about it and look at it directionally. If you do a mobile geofence targeted campaign, look at your average traffic volumes at that season, at that time of day, at that day of week. What was the average traffic and order volume per day? What was the average order amount per customer? And if you're doing that demand sort of creation on the front end, you should be able to see an incremental lift on the back end, even if it's not directly in a linear fashion attributable in a fancy dashboard and a sexy report from a company that you're spending 6 digits on. There's basic math that you can do. And I think where he was going with that I agree with also is, for all the brands in the room, and you're going to do this stuff, take ownership of your technology and your data stacks. You can still use an agency. You can still use a managed service, but they shouldn't own the technology and the data, because that is your brand's IP. An analogy I always use with people is, people talk about this cliche of data being the new oil, and your raw first-party data, while valuable, is crude oil. Crude oil won't power a machine. Crude oil or raw data will not power a dynamic, personalized marketing engine. You need to refine the oil. And if you don't own your own tech stack and somebody else does, that refined oil is their IP, not yours. So you have to take ownership of that to be able to do these things. And I agree, you don't need a big, massive budget or a big, fancy attribution platform. There's some just basic block and tackling marketing fundamentals that you can still do.
So from a media perspective, how do you help brands with that sort of challenge? Because I think a lot of brands are like overwhelmed, to your point of who's going to own it, how are you going to help me, how are we going to integrate?
Totally. I think all of this is great, but a lot of our clients, especially smaller QSR, they get, you even say DMP, and all of a sudden it's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, let's not do this, it's hard, just go to Facebook, right? And it's our job as their partner to make sure that they understand the purpose of a DMP and how it sets, if DMP is the right answer to whatever the problem is, how it sets up the foundation for what we need to do in the future. I think also as agencies, at least from a Publicis standpoint where we're afraid of everything, we don't own any data, we refuse GDPR, the client owns it all, so anything we are doing is just interpreting their internal data, but we can help them set that up. So when we think about QSRs, we're thinking a lot about like MR and how that's probably going to be the new cell phone in the next 5 to 10 years. So why focus right now if I have a small client on building an app or having, a drone give you fries or whatever it is, when I really just need to start grabbing data from my customers in a very easy way, a small S3 bucket, it's not that hard. We just need to explain it to the clients and help them understand the roadmap for how that data is going to be beneficial for them in the future.
So one trigger on that, because we're saying simplify in a complex world, but how much do you really see of AI coming to life? Because do you think it's here today? Do you think it's way out in the future? Who's using it?
Well, let's be real. AI's not real. It's fake at this point. We've made algorithms. Hitting a key on a keyboard is an algorithm. We just have machine learning at this point. So actual artificial intelligence is not being used. If whoever cracks it's not in this room, because they'd be a trillionaire by now, right? I think that anyone can introduce machine learning and small algorithms in small ways to their clients, to their brand. So for example, we've created a very simple script that helps us then tag all of the assets that are in market. And now we're using AI, but it's really just helping us cut down labor costs. I don't need 3 analysts going through 60,000 ads now. I've got one script being managed by a half of an engineer FTE that's just making sure we've got the tags there. And it's just a small step to show if we can automate this and cut you from 2 FTEs, 0.5, imagine what else we could start automating as we get this data layer under control.
Yeah, I would say on that, similarly, I think when you think about it, it's everybody talks about big data and all this stuff, but I think at the end of the day, it's about little data and little executions and little wins that can have a big impact in your business. And in part of that, like you were saying, right, clients get scared off on a DMP, but I think it's important for the audience to understand that not all DMPs are created equal. Every DSP, every managed services partner you work with, every programmatic platform, any bid management solution has technically their own DMP. It doesn't have to be a crux and a standalone third-party DMP that you're spending $100 and something thousand a year on. So understanding your company and your brand and what your goals are, because if you're not going to do more of a Starbucks or a McDonald's-y 360 integration, you probably don't need to spend 6 digits on crux. The DMP that's for free attached to your DSP is probably good enough if you just simply want to take your customer profile data and make some audience segmentation so you can buy smarter programmatic media and better geo-target. Maybe you don't need the big fancy standalone DMP. So also understanding that there's a lot of flavors of DMP and everybody's got a DMP, but they all do different things. The value of a third-party standalone DMP at like Salesforce and a Crux or Oracle's or any of these guys is you want that data to start going both ways. You want to put the media optimization data into optimizing your CRM program and the in-store or in-location customer experience. But if you really only want to use your customer data to buy better media, don't spend the money. Like, you can still get value from it. So that's where focusing on, never mind big data, focusing on small data, small executions, small wins, I think becomes really important. And that's how the smaller ones, particularly if you're a mid-market regional QSR and you're like sub 30 locations and you can't afford a Zenith or a Havas or you can't afford a MediaMath, like, that's how you go about it in a more practical way. And going back to my comment before about sort of like old school grassroots analytics, I remember, in the mid 90s working in this industry and buying search ads back in the day that I couldn't track anything. But if I was working at an agency and I wanted to get more search budget, I would simply look at my data in Google to show that, hey, you ran a TV spot in the Super Bowl and your search queries on your brand terms are up 1,500% over the next 4 days. That's attributable. And I can use that to then go buy better and change my budgets, change my allocation. So there's smart ways to do it. And it doesn't have to be a big fancy dashboard. It doesn't have to be a big attribution platform. It doesn't have to be a 6-digit budget with a Crux or somebody like that. There's still ways to use that data in smart ways for little wins.
Yeah, I try to tell also clients, just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should, right? I mean, and blow all your budget. How would you advise clients to kind of dip their toe into personalization or to sort of step into it, and whether that be budgetary, whether that to be like their first step?
I mean, I can address it from a technology perspective and perhaps a budgetary perspective, but we've talked about this in different ways. And the term first-party data or customer data, having access and having aggregated first-party customer data is the first start. If you don't have that, and most brands don't, it's not a QSR problem. It's every brand, every marketer has this challenge. And I think we've addressed this in the last question. There are 4 pieces of technology in my MarTech stack to be able to deliver that. That's not having 20 vendors that I need to deal with and 3 agencies across the globe to do it. This is fairly simple for any brand to do. You need to take a step back. If that's what you're trying to do, personalize an experience, find the right partner to do it, aggregate the data, first-party data first. You can worry about models, AI, third-party data. There's plenty of data out there that you can throw into the mix. Start with your customer data, expand it as you can to its natural limits, and then connect it. Connect it through the different engagement channels that you're working with. That could be as simple as media channels like search, social, and display, programmatic. It could be out of home, digital out of home. It could be connected TV. It could be even direct mail, email, and just general print. You can do that in a personalized way without a lot of effort, without having 20 partners, without spending a ton of money.
Yeah, I would say on that, just two sort of comments to that. I was going to say two quick comments, but I don't think I say anything quickly. So I'm just going to remove quick from that. So two comments. Is one, you know, if you're trying to do this on your own, you're trying to do it on a budget. What I mean by when I said before about taking ownership of your tech stack means unbundling the service, because a lot of this geo-fencing and geo-targeting and the media capabilities that we're talking about doing, if you're using a managed service black box partner like a Velasys or a Quantcast or a Criteo, and you're paying a fixed CPM, there's data and services and technology and fees that go into that, and it restricts your insight and your knowledge and the levers that you're able to optimize your media on. I equate that to something similar to like a car service. I paid $100, the guy picked me up from my house and took me to the airport. I don't know if that $100 went to the driver, went to the insurance, went to the gas, went to the car payment. Unbundle that, and so push your partners for dynamic pricing and know what you're paying for the technology, what you're paying for the data, what your standalone media CPM is, and what you're paying for a service fee for the bodies to optimize it for the campaign for you, particularly if anybody isn't doing it in-house, self-serve. It's very akin to me of what like Nike does. Nike doesn't even make their own sneakers anymore. They outsource that and contract that out to some other guy that can make them better, faster, cheaper. And that's fine as long as you've unbundled that car service and that analogy and you know where your costs are and what will drive the performance of your business and drive operational efficiencies. The second comment I would say is go back to 1967 when Lester Wunderman coined the term at a speech at MIT of what direct marketing is. And there's like 7 principles of how he defines them about removing the intermediary in the middle, creating a dialogue between a brand and a consumer, driving cost efficiencies. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. And in some cases, I think people get scared off, particularly with the smaller brands, and they're worried about how far their budgets are going to go. They overthink getting a linear, quantifiable attribution model, and they're not looking at it directionally. Because for a lot of brands, and we've worked with Rise Alliance, a number of clients with mid-market, sort of regional QSRs, tier 2 dealerships, and even some real estate groups. And sometimes, if you take a geo filter, and then you put an audience filter on top of that, like, I can't spend like $200 a month for you. So sometimes if you look at that Lester Wunderman model and those principles, one of the key components of that is cost efficiency. So if your click-through rate is dog shit and you have a terrible conversion rate, but you're getting enough reach and you're looking at your sales data and you know that traffic's up in your location and you know sales are up from doing this activity, and if you've unbundled everything and you know where your costs are, you have more control to drive performance. And sometimes, again, the Lester Wunderman model, look at direct mail. Sometimes we need to treat digital like direct mail and go old school on the tactic. And sometimes waste is okay if the price is right.
Well, that's cool. I'm an old school DM direct marketer, so. Question, how do we create?
They just want to hear me talk more.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened there.
Okay. Tell us how data can actually bring to life the customer in different ways. And I'm not saying like the millennial or the age demographic, but how can we really understand those audience and sub-audiences in a new way and really help inform the whole experience?
Yeah, I think we try not to look at age groups so much. There's core motivations that every age group has just from an evolutionary standpoint as humans. And we start by looking at things like that. So there's an effect called the licensing effect. It's the reason why when McDonald's introduced salads, their fry sales doubled. It's essentially that as humans, if we do something that we perceive to be good, we then allow ourselves to do something bad or like treat ourselves. So that doesn't matter if you're a millennial, if you're a boomer, male, female, that's somewhere within our psyche. And then we can leverage that within our media. So if we're then targeting people with a burger that have just joined a gym, we're now influencing you to cheat on your new lifestyle, but it works. And then that helps us contextualize more of the consumer, so we can then throw in our average targeting and normal and understand, well, for my brand, these demographics, these triggers play more with this sort of mindset and go into that. That can then change our creative, change more targeting parameters, and help us if we are trying to personalize things. So if I'm now serving dynamic carousel ads for a CPG brand, it might be like I'm showing you diapers for your kids and golf clubs. We can apply that to QSR as well to bring just these motivational triggers to life. Very cheap way to do things. It doesn't require a ton of creative changes, and you can layer it onto the targeting you already have.
I think diapers and golf clubs could be a reality show. Like
It's the name of my first book, actually. Yeah.
What I think is smart about that for the audience, to add some additional context to that, what I really like about that is that test and learning and sort of really seeing what it's at versus going in with an arbitrary marketing playbook of like, this is my audience, and actually seeing who your audience really is. Because one of the challenges with digital also is the flaw in the data that we use for our targeting. Right? I'm 45 years old. I skied 50 days this year, but I also have 3 kids. So depending on which, and by the way, anybody in here, like if you have a DMP partner or a third-party data partner, you can provide email addresses and actually challenge them and tell you how they, in their system, label you, like what segments do you fall in, right? And like for me, it's not and, it's all ors. So you're gonna target me as a 45-year-old dad, or a ski bum that skis 50 days a year, or a foodie, or somebody that likes gin and tonics, or the data platforms, it's always, in many cases, ors. Yep. And I'm really all these people. So if you over-focus on that data and that segmentation, you might be hitting me the wrong way, because maybe I don't have my 45-year-old dad hat on right now. Maybe I'm the ski bum pretending I'm not 45 with 3 kids. So you got to talk to me a little bit differently in that moment. And your model, what you were describing, really allows you to dynamically optimize that messaging to maintain a level of relevancy and overcompensate for flawed data.
Well, I see segments and tribes or whatever you want to call them as trash, because to your point, if we're looking at people that go to SoulCycle, well, they might only be SoulCycle enthusiasts in the morning. Right. And so if my media for my burger company is running in the afternoon towards SoulCycle, it doesn't matter, because now they're putting the rave hat on. And a raver and a SoulCyclist within a DMP or a targeting group, 2 completely different people, but most likely, I mean, maybe I've got my New York glasses on, but same person at the end of the day. And so now we've created ways for ourselves trying to be smarter with all these segments and sub-segments that now we're making creative for. It just ends up being a large endeavor for not a lot of buck.
How do you see, so all of this insight and all of this understanding with consumers and your customer, how do you see it working well for brands so they're sharing it across sort of the entire supply chain? Like maybe who's doing it well, what's an example, how are you helping, train brands along? But I think that internal connective tissue is so important.
What do you mean by supply chain?
I think data can actually, well, you tell me. I think it can influence product development. I think it can influence more than just the customer experience in store. I think it, you can add more services because of it. But
yeah, I think when I think omnichannel, I think most people when they say omnichannel think about it from a media perspective or a marketing perspective, and I think that's fairly flawed. Going back to my previous comment about the CX, the customer experience, and the marketing data, those sort of 2 data sets, or traditionally 2 data sets converging, if that's not happening at your company, it's gonna, and it should be. So how do you use that data? If you're Subway and you have 2,600 restaurants, 26,000 restaurants in the US, how do you actually use data that you could be getting from your customers when they're in the restaurant, when they are going by a restaurant, when they're going by competitors' restaurants, when they're engaging with your marketing? How do you use that to plan out where your next restaurant's going to be? And how do you look at your footprint and optimize that based upon that data? That seems crazy, but what other data set do you have that can let you do that more effectively than the data that you're collecting from that customer on a real-time basis. I saw at a retail show, I saw the Gap talk about, the CEO of the Gap talk about how they're starting to plan their stores, and their stores are going to be a smaller footprint put next to Trader Joe's. You know, they're using data on their customers' behavior and what they're doing outside of buying apparel from the Gap or one of their competitors, and they're applying it from a location basis based upon their competitors. Not even competitors, non-endemic competitors, non-endemic brands. But using that data to plan better. We are in that mode right now. We have that data. We should be using it. And then crafting the customer experience in the store, drive-through, pickup. Bear Burger mentioned BOPIS, like seeing BOPIS in a restaurant context made me happy. Obviously, retailers are focused on buying online and picking up in store. So there's a move there. The one thing I will say, on the other side, we're talking about payment and fulfillment through kiosks and through apps. The one other thing I'm seeing that I just want to caution against in this space is as QSRs are moving more towards delivery and using third parties for that, being the Domino's driver back 20-something years ago, you need to own the data from that fulfillment. That experience is still your experience, and that data is still your data. So if you're partnering with an Uber Eats or a DoorDash or a Caviar, make sure that you are getting access to that data, insisting upon access, because that is part of your customer journey, and any hiccups there, and all the data that they're collecting there from time to drop off is affecting your brand. Make sure you are collecting that data.
Yeah, and I think as an extension of that, also, when you're dealing with a lot of these like third-party companies that offer these solutions, they're also aggregating that data, and they're selling advertising to non-endemic advertisers within their ecosystem in their walled garden. So be smart about the partners you're talking to and understand their business model. So if some of them you might have a direct data deal with, and all of your data comes right back to you, and the partner is not allowed to use your data. Well, you're going to pay a premium for that. Maybe you're cool with allowing them to aggregate and anonymize your data for contextual insights and put it into a data co-op of 16,000 other QSRs. And if they're going to do it, a lot of people get afraid of that, but I would say you can let them do that if you then get that shared insight back. And that's where I think you can create a lot of opportunity of, like if I'm Chick-fil-A in Austin, I want to be next to the spin studio. But in Boston, I want to be next to the yoga studio. And in New York, I want to be next to the Lids hat store for some reason. But if you're aggregating all that data up, you can get insights back from these partners that can help you optimize on. So you don't necessarily always have to do that data heavy lifting on your own. So in some cases, to get a discount on the media and working with the partner and even a delivery service, you can let them have access to your data and anonymize it for industry level wide insights, as long as you get that back and you can use that yourself.
Yeah, I would say a third party, you're using a third party, but that is not third party data. That is your data. And make sure you're leveraging it to the best of your ability. When I talk about starting from that first party data, customer data perspective, that's data as well that you should be leveraging for your marketing.
I think a lot of times we talk about customer journey and no one talks about that data journey. And if you just do that audit to find what those blind spots are, I think are hugely rewarding. Anything that's sort of overlooked in the QSR space right now that's a big opportunity that no one's talking about? We see a lot being like, hey, I've got an app, download my app, or hey, I'm doing some retargeting. Is there anything sort of interesting that you think is just a simple, overlooked opportunity?
I think the missed opportunity is right now, I think everybody in the category is overly focused on download my app, download my app, download my app, download my app. Like we talked about before, Starbucks spent millions and millions of dollars, so 1 in 4 people who walk into Starbucks have your app, but your average person is way, way worse than that. And with 5G coming, to me, the simple opportunity is don't bother with that. But you should offer wireless charging, enhanced ordering, remembering what people order, and I think that's an area like Starbucks in particular does really, really well. And that way, if you get my email address and my device ID, you're better able to create a dialogue as part of a CRM program. And I think that's just a missed opportunity, because right now the fever is download my app, and the reality is if you get 100 people to download your app, 50% of them are going to use it once. 50% of the people that use it once are probably never going to come back again. And the reality is, out of 100 people that you spend all those marketing dollars to download your app, you're going to get 1, maybe 2 people to use it. So I think the opportunity and the overlooked piece is stop with the obsession of download my app and just focus on using the device and mobile as a consumer access point and get to that customer via that device in a meaningful way.
Can we just do what our customer wants from us, though? Because that's the biggest marketing challenge. I constantly have clients say, our problem is we need more millennials. Well, that's not your problem. Your problem is you're not making anything millennials want. So I can go reach a ton of millennials, but if I'm offering them a retirement home, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So can we not just take a look at why millennials aren't choosing our brands, or why whatever we're trying to solve with an app, can we just make a different product? Can we make a different experience, not just push media as a Band-Aid to reach people? Let's provide them with something.
Right, and I think part of it is, are we asking the right questions of the data? It's not that the data is the magic 8-ball that are going to tell you everything, right? And I think setting up those appropriate business questions and problems to know what you're solving for helps us.
Well, I think you have to go into it sort of eyes wide open, because the data shouldn't be a black and white answer. More often than not, the data should make you ask more questions and dig into what's going on and make you ask more questions and ask yourself how you can refine that experience, how you can offer a better product, how you can create operational efficiencies, how you can drive more top-line revenue. And again, the data is not the answer to all of that. The data just helps you ask better questions. And the more questions you ask, the more data you look at, the better your questions get, and the better the results become over time.
I would say the one thing, going back to the customer journey, that I feel like brands are missing out on, or maybe not doing as good a job as they can be, is around loyalty. So I think that going back to the download my app, like that, I think perceived by marketers is, if they have my app, they're a loyal customer. If they use my app and they get stars or points or whatever it might be, they're a loyal customer. And I think it's a little bit of a simplification of the loyalty that a customer has toward the brand if they're just collecting something to get something for free. Now, it's definitely a viable option in terms of promotion, and obviously you want to use that data to create these types of engagements and to try and get repeat visitation and repeat purchase. But there are plenty of other ways that you can then take that data, personalize experiences through marketing, through customer experience in the restaurant, to create loyalty. Airlines are fairly good at this, not all of them, but Delta's pretty good at this in terms of convincing me that I need to always fly Delta. Why? Because I'm chasing miles, but they might hook me up and upgrade me every once in a while. They might let me sit in the lounge for a couple hours.
But I think that goes back to, you mentioned earlier the comment, and I'm a big advocate of that statement of, in the world of digital, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And I encourage everybody in the room, when you're thinking through marketing strategies with digital, use yourself as a focus group of one, because going back to your point, if I'm just chasing free deals, that's fine, but you're going to want to talk to that person very differently than somebody else that's an advocate of the brand. And you can actually start to even make a lot of assumptions and implications that you can test out in marketing. Just think about mobile devices for a second. A lot of people have argued for years that the iPhones are always just catching up to what Samsung did in last year's model, right? But why can I get 2 Samsung 10s for $50 and an iPhone 10 costs me $1,000? Because Apple has shuttered their iAd business and they're selling to the audience that I only use your data to use more Apple products. I'm a better company. The person using the Android phone in many cases, my brother's one of them, and I have all my kids on Apple products, but my brother likes the Androids because he knows he's getting tracked. But he doesn't care because it's a cheaper service. He gets a better phone for less money. So you're going to want to talk to that iPhone person very, very differently than the Android person. And then you also have to be really careful about your targeting. Because if you use a mobile geofenced in-app targeting program and you overhit the Apple user, you might rub that guy the wrong way because he thinks he's using an Apple phone for privacy. So you got to think about the frequency and communication and how you get the data to get to the customer at the same time.
Great. All right. Do we have time for a few questions? Absolutely. Okay, cool.
Bueller.
Hey.
10, please.
Come on, we were a lively panel. There's no questions.
If nobody asks questions, I'm going to start doing stand-up.
Go ahead.
In the back.
Actually, I'm going to take this mic, run that to that person back there, please. And if you need to answer, you can use the podium.
Run, Forrest, run.
Sorry, if you need.
Hey guys, I'm Will. I work on a lot of local and franchise business, and part of my struggle with data is getting the national teams to release that to a lot of our local groups, which is pretty much just a no, just about every time. But when they're activating that data, obviously they should be activating it locally. So how do I tell that story to get a piece of that data pie?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the other option I've seen when I've worked with sort of regional chains, and even bigger chains, back in my Havas days, I worked on the Choice Hotel business, right? And they've got 8 brands within the Choice Hotels portfolio, like 5 are mid-scale, 3 are economy. So then they have 2 associations for mid-scale and economy. Then they have the US divided up into 13 sub-regions. And then you have the individual franchisees on that. So there was data trapped at the national level, at the mid-scale and economy cluster level, at the individual brand level, and down to the franchisee. And sometimes I've found when you can't get the data from the top back down, if you start working with the local level providers and working with the right partners, you can start building the data up, right? And then actually getting some small data wins and showing how at a regional level or at a sort of smaller microcosm as a proof of concept, how this data was then to be useful, and you can show that up the food chain. I tend to find that usually it does take time, but that'll start loosening the screws they have on the lockbox that they keep the national data in. And so sometimes you got to go the other way around, build it from the bottom up instead of trying to get it from the top down.
Yeah, hospitality is a vertical that has that. Automotive is a vertical that has that. QSR. Yeah, it's a matter of proving the value. And I agree with Rob. Starting from the bottom and going up is usually the better way. It's harder from the top down. It's a lot of work, but it's not. It's fairly universal across a lot of verticals. Not just QSR.
Well, in the bottom up, like not only does it give you better data that's more actionable on like a small data window from like small executions and small wins, also you got to remember when you're dealing with somebody at the national level at these brands, the amount of pressure they're under to keep their job, right? So if he releases this data and something goes wrong, he has a greater risk of being scapegoated and taking a fall over it not going good versus the benefit and the upside if he does it right. So the risk is greater than the reward. So you got to remember when you're dealing with the national guy, that's another can of worms, and that's where for separate reasons, bottom up also makes sense.
We're going to take one more question here in the back.
Yep, in the back here.
Go ahead.
Hey guys, so good explanation.
Dude, you promised me a softball question, man. Don't do this to me.
Here you go. So the problem is, and I know you love politics within the agency world, Rob. So I'd argue that the information or the data that you're getting from the local, to your point, is more important than a lot of what the national is doing for splashy ads and awareness functions, where local can show you more along the lines of purchase data, visitation, all that good attribution type stuff. The politics of the agencies that exist, especially the big boys, are like, well, I can't share this local information and that data with someone else because the big agency doesn't want to talk with the client and the client doesn't want to hear from 2 different agencies, or it's all a big fight, so information sharing doesn't take place. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge,
I'm
right?
Eric from ThinkNear.
Yeah, and ThinkNear, everybody. Thanks for the question, sales pitch in the form of a question.
Oh, snap.
I think but it's not just data, right, at agencies. And you're at a big agency, and I've spent a lot of years at Havas, and you've been selling in agencies forever. Like, you know, with some of these activities, like I found even in my Havas days, like, is it a performance campaign? Is it a programmatic campaign? Is it a social campaign? Is it a mobile campaign? And all of those divisions are fighting over control of that budget. So that's just a big agency problem, and data is just a part of that.
Yeah, I think from a big agency perspective, we would say is we put together a task force. So, I mean, it's client, it's agency, it's media, it's like the data analytics, and we come together and we map through of what the value is that. So I'm a big believer of bring all those smart minds together, and we've gotten huge traction across local, global, to get it done when you have the right people talking to each other.
As the guy with the least agency experience, although I have some, I go back to Rob's point. Like, the data and the data stack is owned by the marketer. So if the agency's stopping that collaboration, I think it's incumbent upon the marketer to force it. Now, granted, there's different marketers here at different levels, but the reality is the marketer owns this. There should not be this agency politics stopping that from happening, and we got to stop.
Another
We're
question?
still making out when this panel's
We got
over.
one more back here.
Hi, Suze Lampert from Gas Buddy. One question, just switching gears. What are your thoughts on data being collected from personal assistants? So Alexa, Google, Home, how does that play into the mix? And are we not there yet, or?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of times as marketers, again, we're treating Alexa skills, we're treating Google Home skills as an app of like, you got to do this, but if we pretend that we've provided the customer something they want, the input that comes out of voice assistants, things like sentiment, things like null logs, customers are literally telling us with their mouths what they want from us, and we can pull that data out and then make decisions on it. So I don't care how many people are using my Alexa skill, but if 300 of them are using it, what are they actually asking Alexa to do from my brand? What's the sentiment that they're showing? And ultimately, how often are they using it so that we can then use that for decisions? I think that voice, I mean, everyone's been told this 1,000 times, is probably the way we're going, especially with MR. So if people are telling us and it's in their home focus group of one, let's actually listen to that data and understand what they're saying.
I think the voice, to your point, is spot on that, because at the end of the day, right, just treat these voice-activated mechanisms, it's just an extension of search. It's just a new way to search for shit, right? And it's somebody raising their hand saying, I want this. And then you want to understand the context and the sentiment around that so you can personalize what you're going to put in front of that consumer at that time. So again, like, while it's fancier, it's newer, it's on different devices, at the end of the day, it just, to me, reminds me a lot of search, right? It's just how I'm accessing information.
Thank you. Over to you, Lunch.
Thank you very much. Great panel. We're going to now break for lunch, which will be to your right, and then we're going to have a luncheon presentation.